Okay, the last video clip about constructivism. In this video clip, I will introduce two theories which are derived from constructivism to explain some hard to explain international relations phenomenon. Hard to explain, I mean hard to use traditional international relations theories, that is neoliberalism or neoliberalism, to explain. The first one is security community, 安全區域. Well, these terms sounds like the title of a Korean film. Then what is security community? Security community is, according to realism, state-to-state is relations because of the existence of so-called international anarchy. So states must be well prepared to face conflict with another state in the near future. Of course, there are some methods to prevent the outbreak of conflicts, like the use of balance of power. But states must be well prepared for the outbreak of war, so they have to strengthen themselves or form alliance with others to prevent the outbreak of conflicts. But there are some states on the world, and even some regions on the world, you may hardly think that there will be an outbreak of conflicts, even of war. Of course, there are lots of conflicts, but these conflicts won't escalate into war in those regions. Say North America, say Canada and American, and also Western Europe. You cannot consider Germany and France will wage war against each other in the future anymore. Unlike 70 years ago, it's 80 years ago. 80 years ago. It is unimaginable. Why? This kind of regions is a totally contradictory to the prediction of realism, because Canada won't prepare to engage in a war against US, and France and Germany, they won't prepare. Of course, Germany and France now, they do not prepare to wage war against each other, and there are lots of conflicts between France and Germany, but they don't consider that those conflicts will escalate into war again in the future. Why? It is because this region is called security community. Security community is a group of people integrated by a sense of community. They think that, okay, we people in this community, in this region, is members of the same community. And then we have a lot of conflicts, of course. People and people, even you and me, have a lot of conflicts. But this kind of conflicts can only be settled by peaceful method. That is, they wish, in this community, they wish an agreement that common social problems must and can only be resolved by peaceful change. That is, what is peaceful change? It's that all conflicts must be settled by institutionalized procedures, and then resorting to large-scale physical force is forbiddable in this region. Say, Britain now would like to, of course, Britain has already quit the European Union, but I mean, 4 years ago, Britain decided to quit the European Union. Then there are conflicts between Britain and European Union on how to settle the relations after Britain left the European Union. this conflict must be settled within an institutionalized procedures. Britain must, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, but Secretary of Foreign Affairs of Britain, must sit down and compromise with some Minister of Foreign Affairs of France, of Germany, or other European states, and also some high officers of European Union. They have to sit down and settle the conflicts. You cannot imagine that when Britain would like to leave European Union, then other European states force Britain to pay a compensation. Otherwise, they will invade Britain or wage a war against Britain. Unimaginable. They must be settled by institutional procedures. All conflicts must be settled by institutional procedures, institutionalized procedures. There are two forms of security community. The first one is called amalgamate security community. Amalgamate security community. That is some previously independent unions, say United States. United States, they are at the beginning of the history of United States are 13, this so-called 13 independent colonies of Britain. They joined together to form the United States. So these colonies, in the past, there's possibility that this colony wage war against each other. However, when they joined together to form the United States of America, they will have no chance to fight the wage war against each other. This is the first form of security community. And the second one is called pluralistic security community. This is the second one. This is called amalgamate. Amalgamate. Yes, amalgamate security community. Yes, amalgamate. I may pronounce the word wrongly moments before. Sorry about that. This is called amalgamate security community. And the second one is pluralistic security community. That is a region in which there are two independent states, or there are many independent states, more than two. However, in this area, in this region, war is unimaginable. Why security community is formed? It's because of the feeling of we-less. What is the source of feeling of we-less? Three sources. The first one is shared identities, values, and meanings. Like members of European Union, they share the identities of members of European Union. And they also share some common values, like they all believe in liberal democracy. They believe that liberal democratic method is the best method to resolve conflicts, other than, the use of force. Like America and Canada, they also of course, they're not members of, they're members of so-called North American Trade Agreement, but this is not a European Union-like international organization, just a trade agreement. However, both American and also Canada, they share same value. That is, they believe in liberal democracy, and also they are English-speaking countries. This is English-speaking identity is very important because they consolidate their identity and then make war, the outbreak of war, unimaginable in this region. Then there are many side interactions. American and USA people, Canadian travel to USA quite often, and American also travel to US travel to Canada quite often. And there are plenty of interaction between trade interaction or financial advancement between Canada and America. So this interaction develop a sense of long-term trust. And then also a reciprocal long-term interest. Say, Canada, they know that their economy depends on United States. And United States also know that if Canada's economy collapsed, then America also face a big crisis, economic crisis. So, because of their they cannot each other, and also European states, Germany, they know that their economy counts on the economic booming of France, and also now like 2 days, the spread of coronavirus. I pronounce it right this time. Coronavirus. When the coronavirus spread in, there's an outbreak of coronavirus in Italy, that it easily spread to other member states of the European Union, like Germany, like France. So, because of this kind of long-term interaction lead to a sense of interdependence, because they know that for a very long period of time, they count on each other. They count on each other for the long-term interest, for the long-term state interest. Okay. Another example is there's a global convergence of particular norms, patterns, models, strategies of beliefs. State would like to state always practices similar policy to each other. I give you a good example. In fact, when you enter Hong Kong, when you pass the customs, this gate, then there are two gates. One is red gate, that's good to declare, and the second gate is nothing to declare. This red and green gate exists in nearly all airports all over the world. But however, this is just a practice that exists which has existed since 2005, around 2005. And the past, no, there are no two separate gates. People, if they would like to declare that there are some goods that need to be declared, then they will go straight to an office of the Custom and Excise departments. Say that I have to pay some duties. Otherwise, they will just cross the gate, and then of course, officers from the Custom and Excise department randomly check whether they carry some goods that are illegal or that need to pay some duties. But otherwise, there's no separate. In the past, there's no separate red and green gate. No, but why? Later, all airports around the world set up this red and green gate. There's no international law or to require that all airports set up this gate. This is just a practice that the international custom and excise organizations consider this as a good practice and then promote it to different member states. Of course, Hong Kong is not a state, but Hong Kong Custom and Excise Department is a member of this organization. So they joined. So this organization as Hong Kong CNE department just learn from this good practice promoted by the international organization. But why? Countries all around the world learn some kind of so-called good practice. For instance, like even China, there's a form of independent central bank, that is People's Bank. In the past, before 1980s, many central bank is just a small department under the Ministry of Finance of the country. But now there are plenty of, and all countries, even Hong Kong, are in a somehow independent central bank. That is, this bank is not directly controlled by the Ministry of Finance. It's somehow independent. Why? Why state independent central banks? In fact, this is a form of social learning. If you study psychology, you know what is social learning. In fact, this diffusion of international norms and practices is the social learning of international relations. There are lots of reasons. The first reason is because they would like to. There's a lot of formal and informal pressure for state to adopt some practice, because if they adopt this practice, then they can, firstly, they think that they can be a more modern, look like quite modern, and also adopt this practice is just like, because what is formal and informal pressure is because if they this is a symbol that your state is a civilized state. For instance, why lots of countries turn to democracy, because democracy now is a kind of a symbol of civilized country, and also adopt those models which are perceived as successful or legitimate around the world. Because their model, adoption this model, there's model in other parts of the world, and adopt this model seems like it's successful or legitimate, and then adopt this model is okay in this country. For instance, T is Donald Rumsfeld, a former Secretary of Defense of U.S. U.S. has a special civil and military relations, very special in the past. That is, the head of the Department of Defense must be a civilian, 文官. He wear a suit, and ordinary suits, unlike them, they wear uniforms. He is the top of the military in U.S., but he is a civilian. This is very new practice. In the past, the top is the head of state, like the president or the king. But the head of the whole military department, usually in the past, is a military man. But because America, this first country, used the system of a civilian to head the whole defense department, so other states copy from it, like nowadays South Korea, Japan also make a civilian to be the head of the military. Why? Because American practices. So these practices seem to be successful or legitimate. So other countries learn from it. Like quantitative easing. U.S. is the first country use QE to rescue its economy. And nowadays, all other countries on the world, like China, also adopt this method. Why? Because this method is perceived to be successful or legitimate. One country adopts it, then this country is a great power adopts this method, and this method is successful in that great country. Then other countries think that, okay, when I use this method, then I can follow example and then success. Like that's great power. And also state frequently adopt some policy in order to, because of the symbolic standing. For instance, a state possesses nuclear weapons. Why? Because a state with nuclear weapons is a symbol of big country. In the past, only US, UK, Russia, and China, those 5 so-called big powers, possess nuclear weapons. Now, some small powers like India, Pakistan, and North Korea also possess nuclear weapons. One of the main reasons why North Korea or even Iran try to acquire nuclear weapons is because a country with nuclear weapons is considered a big country. This is a symbol of big country. A symbol of big state power, so big power status. And sometimes they follow the norms of international norms, not because they worry about the cause of disobedience, but because this is a question of their sense of self. In order to look civilized, they don't want to look uncivilized. The best example is some countries like Japan or South Korea. Of course, Japan now quit the treaty. Japan, this country, itself considered as commercial whaling, that's spoken. It's not a big problem. But why? Like, even though there are lots of fishermen oppose the ban of commercial whaling in Japan. However, Japan later joined international organizations to ban commercial whaling. Why? South Korea is the same. China is the same. Why? The main reason is because they want to look civilized. International society consider whaling is an uncivilized practice, so this country banned commercial whaling in order to look civilized. That is why Hong Kong people do not eat stock. The main reason is because